James McCourt is a royal expert and joins me now from Los Angeles. Great to have you with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, of course, this is new territory for the royals, trying to figure out how two senior members of the family step back from royal duties. How well do you think the Queen has handled this issue so far, and what are some of the complex matters that she said need to be resolved?
Yeah, I actually think she's handled it extremely well. I think it must be very, very tough for her, somebody that's rooted in tradition and at the same time knows she's got to move with the times and also doesn't want to make any of the same mistakes that were perhaps made when Diana joined the royal family. So she wants to support ultimately her grandson, but at the same time, you know, she is very sad that they're not going to be senior royals anymore. I think she's handled it with as much sort of respect as she can. You know, she certainly called them in as quickly as she could to discuss this today, and is trying to find a way forward for them. You know, I mean, this is unprecedented. So it's a learning curve for her. It's a learning curve for everybody watching. What I don't really understand is why it was done in this way, in the sense that apparently the palace only got about 20 minutes notice before the announcement went live on Instagram, even though I think there had been discussions before about this with the Queen and Prince Charles. I think the thought was, well, yes, you can potentially do this, but let's get some plans in place first. And that's not what happened. You know, the statement was released, and I think that's what was particularly tricky for the Queen, because she would have preferred to come out with an official statement, I think, from the palace with, you know, how are you going to be funded? Who's going to pay for the security? What will happen to your patronages and everything like that? And of course, it all just sort of fell into some kind of confusion, and nobody really knew what was happening for a few hours. It was
certainly that surprise element for the Queen that made this all the more difficult, didn't it? So how will Prince Harry and Meghan likely balance out royal duties versus private ventures? There's already been, Meghan has signed with Disney, hasn't she? And of course they have to divide time between the UK and Canada. What would you expect the outcome of all this to be?
Well, I think it's tough because they are obviously extremely well known all around the world, probably some of the most famous people on the planet because of being royal. But now they're saying, well, we don't want all the trappings of being royal now. We just want all the nice things, which I get. Of course, we would all like that. I don't know how that is going to work, to be honest, having kind of a foot in two different worlds. I guess the ideal scenario would be that they can retain their patronages, come and do certain royal events, join the royal family when it's a wedding or a Christmas, that type of thing, maybe at Christmas. But then ultimately raise Archie and, you know, any other royal babies that happen over in Canada or North America, wherever they decide to settle. I don't know how easy that is going to be, honestly. It's never been done before. And I think there will be a slight sort of sense of resentment from some Brits that, you know, kind of feel that, well, we've given them the sovereign grant for so many years, we've helped renovate their house with public money, and now they're signing a book deal to make their own money, or, you know, Meghan is now voicing a film for Disney or whatever it is, public appearances and that sort of thing. I don't know whether that's going to sit very well, which is a real shame, because I think the Brits had really very high hopes for Meghan and Harry, and Harry is very beloved, definitely, by the public over there. So,
and as you say, I mean, wanting the best of both worlds. So how can Prince Harry and Meghan claim to be working towards financial independence when they will still receive most of their funds from Prince Charles?
Right, yeah, from his duchy estate, of course. Last year, around about £2 million, so, you know, $2.5 million around that was given to Harry and Meghan. You know, it's whether that continues now. I don't think Prince Charles, I would imagine, is overly thrilled about the way all of this was done. But at the same time, Harry is his son, and, you know, Meghan's his daughter-in-law, and Archie's his grandson. So he may want to make sure they're financially secure, but at the same time, again, it's a balancing act for him. He's got to know that, like, the public opinion matters as well. He is going to be king. So how much money does he give to the couple when they're supposed to be financially independent? And how quick will this be? You know, it's definitely going to be a transition period. And at this point, as of today, after the summit, we still don't really know any details. So, you know, we're all a little bit in the dark. It's going to take some time to adjust for everybody, including, I'm sure, the royal family as well.
The Queen would agree with you. So what impact will all this ultimately have on the Queen? And, of course, those royals who follow in her footsteps, Charles and ultimately William?
Well, you know, I think Charles always had an idea that he wanted to slim down the royal family somewhat, but I think he would have kept Harry and Meghan very much a close part and as senior royals if he could have done that. It's going to be different. It's going to be sort of another one of those periods where everybody is trying to get used to something new. And I think that happened, you know, when Diana and Charles were divorced, and then Diana obviously was becoming more a humanitarian, leaving her sort of royal role behind somewhat. You know, that was a huge learning curve for everybody. I think it's going to be the same again. How much, particularly the British public, will understand and support this, I don't know at this stage. I think there is... people are a little bit uncomfortable, I think, with how it was done. And the Queen, you know, people love the Queen. I think, you know, around the time of Diana's passing and how that was handled, maybe people weren't so keen on the Queen at that point. I think now people just think of her as an incredible woman that's been on the throne for all of this time. You know, she's a grandmother. She's a grand old age as well. And we want to make sure that, you know, people are nice to the Queen. And we're not convinced maybe at this point that it was done in the right way. But time will tell. I don't know. You know, fingers crossed it all works out. But there's a lot of work still to do, I think.
Times, they are changing. James McCourt,
they are.
Thank you so very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. OK.